Oh, it is draft day in the NBA. I'm Chris Hassel. Welcome to CBS Sports HQ. We are going to hit the draft from just about every angle over the next hour. We have several of our analysts and experts in studio, including Mike O'Donnell, who is going to give us a little nostalgic feel for those of us who grew up 80s and 90s, opening up packs of baseball and basketball cards. He's going to open up several draft packs of players who you're going to hear their names called tonight. Mike, take it away and take us back to the glory days.
There's nothing like saving up your lawn cutting money so you can get 20 bucks, go to the card store and see if you can get a really good pack of cards. You know, anything from tops and upper deck. But I think the idea for this is you and I, the audience and myself, we're going to open up a digital pack of cards together and we're going to go through some of the good ones and actually see if we can pull one of them. So let's see what kind of prospects that we can keep our eye on here. Okay, pretty good pick. I know we've got a lottery pull here in Trey Johnson potentially, but this is a really interesting pull here. And let's start with Rasheer Fleming first. A lot of Pascal Siakam in his game. You may not know him, played at St. Joe's. Prototypical 3-and-D, shot over almost 40% from three, length and athleticism, and a rim finisher. If you think about his length and athleticism, 6'8", but a 7'5" wingspan. That was the largest differential between height and wingspan measured at the NBA Combine. You may see him as a two-way guy next season, but I think he'll end up making a roster. I really think he's one of the more underappreciated players in this draft, Rasheer Fleming. So who do we think we should essentially do next here? And ultimately, we're looking at Danny Wolf, but Trey Johnson is a guy who I think when we talk about best players in the draft, Cooper Flagg's #1. I think in 5 years, Trey Johnson's going to end up being the second best player in the draft. 3-level scoring threat, big-time pure shot maker, 3-and-D potential. So much Michael Redd and Allen Houston in his game. We go back to the shot-making ability. This is what I love about him. He was 11th in the nation. Top 15 in the country in off down screen scoring. So anytime there's a down screen, pick, stagger screen, he shot 69% effective field goal percentage coming off screening action. Danny Wolf is the next guy we'll look at. Playmaking, mismatch nightmare, positional versatility, a lot of Hedo Turkoglu. I'd love to see him with the Spurs personally, because if you look at his mismatch nightmare ability and positional versatility, top 3 in the Big Ten in defensive rebounding rate and top 20 in the Big Ten in assist rate. Those are crazy combinations of skill sets to have. I like Danny Wolf a lot. He's a fringe lottery guy. Trey Johnson will probably be a top 5 pick. That's a pretty good pull. I'm hanging on to the Trey Johnson card for sure. Let's see if we can, I'd like to do one more though here as we're opening up another pack, because saved up a little extra money. See if we can pull another pack here.
What was a pack of cards back when you were a kid, Mike? About $5?
Yeah, $5. It's probably like $10
I used to buy the Emotion pack, though, that was $12. My dad would give me money for those.
That was a big-time move there, right? Emotion, for sure. So pretty good pull here. This is another lottery guy. Con Knipple potentially could go as high as 4 or 5 in the lottery. Floor spacer, high IQ feel for the game, playmaker. He's a shorter version of Wally Szczerbiak. We look at that floor spacing and playmaking situation. He's 40% from 3. He was the 11th most efficient half-court scorer in the country, according to Synergy Sports. He does so many things well, does not make any mistakes. He's got every possible shot you can have off the bounce. Just a really, really heady floor spacer and scorer at Duke, and so efficient. Ryan Kalkbrenner. He'll go late first to early second. 7'1", elite rim protector, big-time post presence, and a lob threat. A lot of Brook Lopez in his game. He shot 34% from 3, but the elite rim protection. 4-time defensive Big East Player of the Year. 4 times he tied Patrick Ewing's record for most Big East Defensive Player of the Years. And oh, by the way, Kalkbrenner was also National Player of the Year. Now, Janai Broom's going to be an interesting guy here, because Broom will probably go mid to late second, potentially even undrafted, because of his age and uncertainty about position. However, there's a lot to like. Crafty finisher, post presence, winning DNA. There's some Jalen Smith, Jock Landale in his game. The crafty finisher, he was actually 4th in the nation in at the rim scoring efficiency. Shot over 65% at the rim. And when we think about his ability to go under you, over you, or through you at his height and doesn't beat you with speed. He beats you with finesse. That's another guy who would become a two-way guy, could get on our roster. Be really interesting to see if the Warriors end up finding a place for him on the roster because of his screening ability and passing ability as well.
All right, so we've opened up packs and seen 6 players so far. I'm really interested in Kneppel because I think right now he's favored to go number 4 overall. Is he going to be a top 5 pick tonight?
Very possible. I think the highest he goes is 4. I think the lowest he goes, or the worst he goes is 6. I don't think he falls out of the top 6.
But you have somebody further down the draft who you think is a better shooter than Kneppel, correct?
There's not many players that are better shooter, but Kobe Brea from 3 is a better three-point shooter. Kobe Brea from Kentucky, over 42% from 3, catch and shoot, sniper. Probably go mid-second round.
Get more on Brea a little bit later this afternoon on CBS Sports HQ. Mike is going to open up some more packs in a little bit as we get you set for tonight's draft. There's Kneppel, minus 165 to go 4th overall. The top 2 pretty much locked in now. We know Cooper Flagg is going to the Mavs at 1. We're pretty sure Dylan Harper is going to go to the Spurs at 2. VJ Edgecombe is now minus 420 to go number 3 overall. We don't get to plus money until the 5th overall pick. Well, the last 7 years in the NBA, we have seen a foreign-born player win the MVP award. Who could be next? We'll dive into this year's crop of international talent next. Here are the notable European players selected over the last decade plus. Wemby, the latest superstar. Luka, a lottery pick 7 years ago. And on the right side of the page, not in the lottery, but 5 MVPs combined between the 2013 and 2014 drafts with Giannis and Jokic. Now, this draft, a little bit different because some European players came over, played 1 season of college ball, not technically European entries into the draft, but here are 3 of them, 2 from France, 1 from Israel, who you are going to be hearing from tonight. Our European flair and the top prospects in this year's draft. Chris Hassel joined now by Mike O'Donnell, who's going to take us through a couple of these guys. And we're going to start with Noah Esengwe. And this might be the one guy of the European players in this draft who could crack the top 10.
Absolutely. I've seen him go 8 in a lot of mock drafts, but I haven't actually seen him go past 15. I think he does end up in the lottery, but this is like future projected value. He's not a guy that was dropping 25, 26 points a game overseas. You're looking at him at 18 years old of what he could be in 3 to 5 years.
And all 3 of these guys young, right? I mean, you're basically like one-and-done freshmen, even as young as Cooper Flagg, who reclassified in his 18 years old going into the draft.
Yeah, all 3 of the guys that we're going to talk about are all 18 years old, and Noah Esengwe is going to be one of those guys to where you're looking at it and you say, okay, he's not like he averaged 15, 20 a game, but he's 18 years old, played one of the top leagues overseas, and he's got a super motor and speed. When you're talking a guy at like 6'9", 6'10", and where he's got that gazelle-like sprint. He's a fantastic rim racer. Where he's going to make a lot of money is the pip and pop action. Catches a bad pass, good movement at 6'9". That doesn't happen very often. It doesn't grow on trees. His playmaking ability has gotten better and better and better. As you can see, he kind of absorbed that contact just a little bit. He has to get stronger. That's one of the biggest weaknesses in his game, is if he's going to become a playmaker at 6'9" and making plays off the bounce, he's got the athleticism, he's got the speed. Absorbing the contact and the physicality of the older NBA players is going to be a huge key for Esengwe.
All right, he's looked at right now as the European player who could be drafted the highest tonight, but we're also going to hear a couple others who might be fringe lottery picks, maybe in the 20s. Nolan Traore, this was a guy who was a potential top 10, maybe even top 5 pick about a year ago. What happened? 12
months ago, almost to the dot, they were saying Traore could be a top 5 pick. He got exposed a little bit overseas. Now, he's 18 years old. He started playing in the high-level professional overseas when he was 17, but his passing is off the charts. He has scoring ability, but there's a lot of like LaMelo Ball movement to his game and how fluid he is. When he comes off ball screens and he can get downhill and split a defense, he is crazy cat-like quickness in his game. Maybe from end to end, the fastest player with the basketball in this draft out of any player is this kid right here. And his ability at Traore, watch him catch, flip off the back screen, reading the backside defense, the help defender and the tag defender. This is a high-level pass. That looks like a very simple play, but you know in the NBA, because of how heavy they help in tag help situations, you got to be able to make that pass. Pesky defender, magician-like qualities from a passing standpoint. He is at a minimum top 5 best passer in this draft. Three-point shot is starting to get better. As you can see, lob dunks. Got everything in his back from a passing standpoint, but it's his speed and transition that really changes so much about the conversation for Traore. End to end, the fastest player in this draft with the ball and eyes in the back of his head. Kid is really tough and only going to get better.
So funny. Kid, only 18, yet these guys have been playing professional basketball for 3-4 years in some cases, including our next player from overseas. Not a Frenchman like the first two, but maybe the 4th ever draft pick from Israel in Ben Saraf.
Next to Traore, Saraf is also a top 5 passer in this draft. And it's a different player. He's got a little bit more Manu Ginobili in his game because he's a lot taller and longer. You're talking a 6'5", 6'6" point guard who can throw over essentially any defense. But his passing is even better than Traore's. He's not as fast as Traore, but Saraf can absolutely throw people open as good as anybody else. By the way, look at this left-handed live dribble pass. Do you know what that is in the corner? Former Houston great Nate Hinton, actually. A pretty cool little tidbit there. But Saraf just can direct everything. He plays like he's 30 years old at the YMCA because of his pace, throwing teammates out of the way, find the space, two-man game, catch, and makes the game simple. Three-point shot is okay. He's very pesky on defense, but you can see it, that 6'6" frame, he can drop you. He has the physicality enough. Even though he doesn't look big, he plays physical, that European wiry toughness about him. Three-point shot must improve. Mid-range must improve. I think he finishes pretty well around the basket, but this is where he's really good, right? Is he can put you in hostage situation. He's got a good handle, tough finish, and just an elite passer and court mapper.
You look at some of the other players that have been drafted from Israel. Those are the only 3 ever. You've got these guys, some who, Kasparas Jakučiūnas came over from Lithuania, played 1 year of college ball. How do you compare the level of play, say 1 year of college, compared to what these guys are playing overseas professionally?
So schematically, in the overseas, when you're talking the top leagues in Germany and Spain and Israel, the level of offensive intricacy is so much higher than it is in college. Now, college is getting better, it's getting closer, but you're running stuff against guys who've been playing professional basketball at a really high level for 10, 12 years. You're playing against guys who are playing college basketball for 2 to 3 years. There's a difference in talents, and there's a difference in schematically in the intensity and which you orchestrate the offense.
Jakučiūnas played at Illinois. He's likely going to be a top 10 pick tonight, and one of at least 7, 8, maybe 9 one-and-done college players who will go right away to start the NBA draft. Mike O'Donnell with us here. He's going to be part of our draft coverage all day long and really all weekend long. We have the second round tomorrow, but our coverage tonight, we'll get started at 7 p.m. Eastern Time with our on-the-clock coverage presented by Jeep, and then 8 o'clock Eastern, that hour is when the draft officially begins. Well, we are just a few hours away from Cooper Flagg going #1 overall. You have to count the zeros to try to figure this out. He's minus 100,000 to go #1 overall. So that would mean what? You put $100,000 down
to win 100.
To win 100. So if you've got the money, you can look at it as free money.
So if you bet $1 million, you would win $1,000. But if Dallas decides to trade this pick, then you lose it all.
That's where we get stuck. You could trade any of these picks.
We've got Mackenzie Brooks and Tim Doyle here from Sportsline with some best bets for the draft tonight. And we're going to go to a top 10 bet specifically. And I like what you guys are doing because there's value on both of these. If you put both of your bets together, you'll bring back better than 100-to-1 odds. Tim, why don't you lead us off with your pick?
Yeah, I'm going to look at Derek Queen at 6 to Washington. Now, why so specific? He's from that area. Now, the whole draft is going to be where Ace Bailey ends up because no one knows where he's going to go because he refused to work out for teams. He didn't interview great. They questioned his maturity level. But I absolutely love Derek Queen, and there's always that tie to the hometown guy. You don't want to be the team that doesn't select the hometown guy. When I see Derek Queen, I see a lot of Antoine Walker, who's a multiple-time All-Star in Boston. He's got big frame. He's 6'10". He obviously can rebound the ball. I got a chance to see him live in high school. He went to high school at Cooper Flag at Mount Verde, and I remember telling people, this guy's going to be fantastic. He actually was better than I expected at Maryland. Remember that 1-foot runner he made against Colorado State to win a tournament game? He's getting better day by day. The key with him is, and I don't want to be mean because he's a teenager, but he's going to be very, very wealthy. So now I can start being mean. He's got to put down a knife and fork. The whole question with him is you take the knife, you take the fork, you put it down, you stop eating. You got to stay in elite shape. I love this guy's basketball IQ. I think the Wizards, he's 20-1. They'd be making a huge mistake if they don't pick him.
You're right. I mean, you look at him on the court and you're like, this guy's a top 10 pick in the NBA draft, but he is so skilled. Mackenzie, who's your play?
I'm going to go a little shorter odds here, but still pretty good odds with Trey Johnson to go 7th. Now it's plus 500. It was plus 700, so feels like good news. I have good momentum knowing that the odds makers are kind of on the same page with me here, but this is more just process of elimination. Like, you kind of have your top 3 locked in. You've heard fears be linked to Charlotte, and now you have to assume Ace Bailey goes before 7, right? So now we're in this spot with Trey Johnson, and now with C.J. McCollum not there in New Orleans anymore. You know, they could use a guy like him even more than they did before, what was it, last night. So I think there's a lot of potential here for him. Obviously, he had some shooting lulls towards the end of the season, but he's such a young player with such a high ceiling, and I feel like New Orleans could use a player like that.
All right, so we got a 5-1 and a 20-1 pick here. Parlay those, and it's like 120-1 if they both come in.
Dang.
Let's go to a first-round bet. And I'm going to start with Kenzie here because this player that you have going in the first round, it's close to even money. And if you look up the mock drafts, we have 7 different mock drafts from our experts. Ryan Kalkbrenner is in 6 of those 7 first-round mocks.
Right, and you're seeing, I would act on this now if you can still find it around even money because there's not a lot of places.
He's so tall, by the way. Yeah. I walked into a restaurant behind him, and I was like, that's one of the tallest.
He's legit
humans.
7 feet, right?
Oh, no, he's like 7'2".
What?
Yeah, he's much taller than 7 foot.
And he's like an NBA defense caliber player right now, and his three-point shot got way better his senior year, but obviously this is like a high floor, not as high of a ceiling guy. But when you get to the 20s, 30s, and you get to these, conference final contenders, NBA Finals contenders, they're not exactly looking for the 18-year-old with this massive high ceiling. This is the type of guy you could send to the G League to work on his three-point shot for another season. I think somewhere like OKC honestly makes a lot of sense for him. Not that we're looking for the specifics, but that's around 24. And when they have to go pay Chet, pay Jalen Williams, now you can't pay Isaiah Hartenstein, then you got Kalkbrenner there. It could be a good situation to be in. So I just think later in the round, you'll start to see teams go for these higher floor players.
Tim, you're looking at somebody higher up in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think VJ Edgecombe is an absolute lock at 3. And should he be the 3rd pick in the draft? He should not.
Right.
But the Philadelphia, Daryl Morey, Elton Brand, they don't want egg on their face and take Ace Bailey, and it ends up being a nightmare. Now, if you don't know the story, Ace Bailey's refused to work out for them. He should go 3. VJ Edgecombe will go 3 because, what is he, minus 350?
Yeah, like minus 300.
He brings a professionalism to your squad. And I think he's got a little bit of Ray Allen in him. You see the numbers here, past 30 years. He does a little bit of everything. He was great for the Bahamas team.
If you're the Sixers, though, you don't want to see him right next to Ben Simmons' name.
Oh, trigger.
Ben had some great years there until it all fell apart. You know what happened? He started dating a Kardashian. Once you start dating a Kardashian, your career just goes completely the other way. VJ Edgecombe went to my high school. His high school coach sat at my lunch table when we were in 9th grade.
Don't age yourself,
so I actually told my high school coach, when you French kiss somebody, you got to just lay your tongue in there. They do all the wiggling. It wasn't my high school, it was the kid sitting next to me. And that actually was bad advice I gave him.
Wait,
okay?
your high school coach told you that?
No, the guy who's VJ Edgecombe's high school coach. We were talking about French kissing, because that's what you talk about in 9th grade. And I told him, you just lay it in there like a dead fish, and she does all the, it was bad advice. It was wrong.
How did we get here?
I don't know. I feel bad for Mackenzie. She's right in the middle of all this. Let's go to draft position. Over-under draft positions here. Kenz, we talked about some European players with Mike O'Donnell a little bit earlier. Kasparas Jakučiūnas is a European player from Lithuania, but he did play 1 year at Illinois. What's your pick for him?
I think he goes higher than people are anticipating. I think there's a lot of, teams that like 8 to 11 range that could be looking for a point guard here. You have Phoenix, you have Brooklyn. I think Brooklyn would be a great spot for him as long as they don't go big to have someone with Claxton there. But I could see them just going for the point guard situation here. So that's plus 600 to go 8th to Brooklyn, but anywhere in that range from 8 to 11, it's going to be a bit of a sweat, but I have a good feeling he could end up in one of those.
I think it looks smart if you're a general manager and you take a guy like this, just because he's been through the rigor of playing professional ball in Europe. He plays with great pace. He plays against the pick and roll. Like, if you draft, he may not work out. But if you're a general manager, you have to look smart on draft day. None of these guys are really going to pan out for, 3 years, 5 years? It's not going to happen immediately. So you want to win draft day. That's why Ace Bailey's not going to get drafted 3rd. Because if you draft him, everyone's like, oh, draft today's, we'll see how this works out. And then you're getting crushed. And then if it doesn't work out, bye-bye, you're fired. So if you're a general manager, you got to make sure you keep your job as well. So I think he's a really safe pick, the way you're pointing out.
I think your pick is also a safe one too, Tim.
Yeah, I think Con Knippel, I talked about VJ Edgecombe at 3. Professionalism, safe. Con Knippel's the same thing at 4. And I have him locked in exactly at 4. Charlotte, where to go to college? Duke. What does Charlotte need? Professionalism and shooting. Shot 40% from 3. When you look at Charlotte's squad, there's talent there. I think every year we look at the Charlotte Hornets and we're like, this team should be better. LaMelo Ball, Bridges, Brandon Miller. What do they need? Someone who can spread the floor. Should he be the 4th pick in the draft? I don't think so. But you know who Con Knippel is? You bring Con Knippel home to mom. You introduce him to Aunt Louise. He brings up, everyone's like, oh, this is going to be, he's safe. He doesn't have the same upside as maybe a Trey Johnson, as a Fears, but you take him there because, oh man, he's just he's the safe guy. Yeah, you want your daughter marrying Con Knippel. He brings home a good paycheck. He mows the lawn and stuff. So
it seems like we think that the top 4 picks are pretty much set. You saw them all at minus money right there. Is that going to be the 1, 2, 3, 4?
I think we're going to look back at this draft, Mackenzie, and be like, whoa, how'd that guy slip to 8?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, top 3 are pretty much locked in. I would odds imply that Con Knippel would go 4th to Charlotte too. I have to imagine Ace Bailey does go before 7. I don't know. Fears gets confusing for me too. We are literally 1 trade away from this all being a complete disaster.
That's very true. The trades could change everything.
Once Ace Bailey goes, then everything else then everything will start getting figured out. And would you want to be the GM that drafts a guy that didn't work out for anybody?
Absolutely not. And when you're talking about these guys, like you said, 18, 19 years old, it's going to take a few years of development for these guys to really make a difference. So do you take a chance on a guy like that? I don't know. Tim Doyle, Mackenzie Brooks here on CBS Sports HQ. Many more picks on the Early Edge podcast for every sport this time of year. Ton of baseball plays, ton of golf plays. It's our daily sports line betting podcast. You can listen to it wherever you get your pods. You can also watch it on the Sportsline YouTube page.
Our co-host of the Eye on College Basketball podcast, Matt Norlander, has been very, very busy the last couple of months keeping up with all these prospects. Matt, believe it or not, we're not going to talk about Cooper Flagg here. We're going to actually start by talking about the Brooklyn Nets, who have 5 picks in this year's draft, 4 of which could happen tonight. I think it's very unlikely, and I'm sure you'll agree, that the Nets will use all 4 of those picks on prospects. But what is the strategy when it comes to Brooklyn this year?
Still reeling from the amount of zeros underneath that Cooper Flagg graphic, by the way. That's absolutely insane. I would expect Brooklyn to hold on to the number 8 pick, and really in that spot, highly confident that Brooklyn will walk away with either Kaman Malawach, Con Knippel, or Trey Johnson. I think one of those 3 players winds up being selected by the Nets on Wednesday night. The next one after that's going to be interesting. You see, in fact, the 5 picks here. It would be insanity if Brooklyn didn't trade any of these. They have no business walking away with 5 first-round picks. They need to trade for actual assets here. 19 in that general range. Liam McNeely is a guy that personally I think they should be looking at. I think there's a decent chance he's still on the board there. The UConn one-and-gunner from the Northeast. I think he would genuinely help Brooklyn be a better team next season and be a really good value add there. And then 22 after that. If they don't move off of that pick, someone like Nick Clifford out of Colorado State is someone I'd keep an eye on. He's one of the few players in this draft with 4+ years of college experience that's expected to go somewhere in the top 25. And really, he performed like a top 5 player in college basketball in the final month of the season, so keep an eye on him. And then They got those 2 picks on the back end of the first round, Haley, and I think they'll probably move at least one of them. And then if they don't with the other, look for them to take some sort of guard, lead guard, point guard, someone who can move with the ball in his hands. I think there's a variety of different players that will be available there. But Brooklyn trading at least 2 of these assets by the end of Wednesday night would not surprise me at all. But I do not expect that whatsoever to be number 8 unless a team ahead of them finds reason to get Brooklyn to move up. But I think that's unlikely.
All right, we'll see how all of those picks shake out. They have so many of them, it's hard to keep up. Matt, I was listening to you earlier on CBS Sports HQ, and one of the things you talked about when it came to this draft was the Philadelphia 76ers and what they do with that pick at 3. However, you also noted how difficult it is to do business with Daryl Morey. What can we expect for them to do at that number 3? Do you expect them to hold on to it or maybe trade around to a different spot?
So I think Philadelphia will wind up selecting with the 3rd pick, but that doesn't mean that Daryl Morey hasn't been trying and won't continue to try over the next few hours to ship the pick if he can get a deal that he thinks is worth it. Now, my opinion on that is informed by talking to 3 teams in the lottery, 2 of them in the top 10 that believe that Morey prefers to trade out of that spot, that he's not in love with whatever player they're going to select at number 3. I'm going to give you real quick. I had one source talk to me yesterday. I'm going to give you a quote here that I got from them in relation to how Houston handled this a year ago with Reed Shepherd. He said, "I don't feel like Houston handled the responsibility with the 3rd pick like you should when you have that pick. Houston got stuck with Reed Shepherd. They didn't want to make the pick, and Reed's first year didn't go great. And they looked like they just simply drafted who they thought was maybe the best available player instead of doing their diligence." It's exactly what Philadelphia is doing this year. Philly hasn't brought a lot of guys in, hasn't been transparent in the process with players, and I know he's trying to make that pick, end quote, he being Daryl Morey. So we'll see if they do wind up trading it. I don't think they can. I think Morey's going to ask for too much, and then ultimately I think he picks probably Edgecombe's the favorite there. I just can't shake the idea of what everyone else is telling me about Philadelphia. No one really knows what's going on there. Like, is it Trey Johnson? Is it Ace Bailey after all this? And they'll just take what they think is the best player on the board. So keep an eye on that. And we rarely, one more thing quickly. I remember the first year that HQ launched, I beamed in from the draft there and was the first to report that Atlanta was going to trade with Dallas so that Dallas could get Luka and Atlanta would wind up drafting Trae Young. That wound up happening. But that, I believe, is the most recent instance where we have a team inside the top 5 willing to trade out and move down. We just don't see it happen that often, and I don't think that we'll see it happen on Wednesday.
Oh, the nostalgia of Luka Doncic being a Dallas Maverick, what that was like just a few months ago. Anyways, we're moving on to the biggest risers and fallers, Matt, when it comes to the draft. Walter Clayton Jr. is all but begging to go to South Florida. I know Jacqueline D'Agostino's rolling her eyes to my left over here, but he's basically saying, get me to South Florida. He is your biggest raiser. On the other side of the conversation, Jace Richardson falling a little bit in the draft process. So let's talk about both of them, starting with the rise of Walter Clayton. What should we know about his draft stock ahead of tonight?
Okay, so let's frame it from where we were 2 weeks ago. And 2 weeks ago, I think Walter Clayton was expected to be picked anywhere between 26 and 34. Now that range seems much more in line with like 16 to 21, 22, in part because of, he's had a very nice stretch here, according to my sources, with workouts, with teams. A lot of it's come back well. And I frankly don't think it hurts him that he is of a similar mold, a different player, but a similar mold to a Jalen Brunson type. Jalen Brunson was the National Player of the Year and had to wait until the 2nd round, and now we see that he's become, a top 10, 12, 15 player in the NBA at this point. Clayton's not going to necessarily be that, but I think it does help him. I think he benefits from the likes of a Brunson and other players that have been vastly underdrafted despite having really good college careers and entering the league at a later stage. So I do think that Clayton is moving up and going to be drafted well. Real quick, a side note, Colin Murray-Boyles, I've heard from a few teams that are in that late lottery and then just outside the lottery, South Carolina prospect. He's been mocked, generally speaking, 12, 13, 14, 15, but I've had, some reliable sources indicate to me that he's being seriously considered if he's on the board there at 10, 11, 12. So he's also, I think, a late-stage notch riser by a few more spots. As for falling, Jace Richardson was a player that had been mocked to be potentially in the top 20. I'll be surprised if he goes there tonight. Had a wonderful one-and-done season at Michigan State. I profiled him in the season. He became the team's de facto leader. but I've heard from a couple of teams who have concerns. He has a knee injury dating to when he was much younger, the physicality, the lack of development there, and I do think that, unfortunately, he'll be a victim of some falling on Wednesday and won't go until the mid-20s or so.
All right, yeah, it's tough to hear, especially when you think about that one-and-done year he did have with Michigan State. It was really special, but all things we'll keep our eye on. Tonight, Matt Norlander, you will be a busy man, my guy, heading our coverage on our podcast, counting down to the NBA draft. But before we get there, you can catch him on the Eye on College Basketball podcast with his crew, Gary Parrish, as they bring you the latest details when it comes to their final mock draft. We hope it'll be their final mock draft at this point because the NBA draft is underway tonight.
All right, back here on HQ Spotlight, we have a treat for you because it's time to give out some superlatives.
Look how cute.
For the NBA draft. But before that, we want to reflect and talk about our high school superlatives that we received in high school. In the spirit of honesty, like, I don't have a cooler one. I was voted biggest flirt. I'm sorry. And that's a recent photo of me just being a complete dork. Tim Doyle, best hair. Voted best hair in high school. MOD, most athletic. And Haley, best dressed.
Yeah, this is kind of a lie on my part. I actually was voted most athletic as well, but I didn't want to steal your shine, MOD, so my ideal superlative is best dressed.
Okay.
Hence the cow dress.
Worth mentioning, I got most talented in middle school. But
Wait, is this a therapy session? I mean, we get it. You were a big deal. We get
look
it,
who's
okay?
talking. Look at me at the end of the desk there, calling me out. What's going on? All right, so we're gonna get this train back on the tracks, and we were talking about NBA superlatives. We're gonna hand out some awards to some of the top prospects, and we were starting with the best pure scorer. So MOD, I'll come to you first. Who is the best pure scorer out of all the prospects in this upcoming draft?
Trey Johnson, freshman out of Texas, averaged 19.9 points per game. The great thing about Trey Johnson's game is when you talk about scoring, I mean, he is that three-level guy. Finishing at the rim has to get a little bit better. Mid-range has everything in his bag, and he's got a very long wingspan as well. Because of his ability to shoot over defenders, 6'5", almost a 7-foot wingspan, Trey Johnson is one of the best players and most efficient scorers coming off screens. And Tim, I know you love analytics so much. He's actually top 15 in the country in off the screen scoring efficiency. She has a 69% effective field goal percentage coming off screens. So pin downs, staggers, flares, any screen activity whatsoever, that's going to lend him to a really big success rate on whatever team he is. And the fact that he shoots close to 40% from three, he has every possible tool in his bag. Very Allen Houston, Michael Redd type game.
I think his ball, the way he could put the ball on the floor, handle, score one-on-one.
Very underrated ball handler. Yeah.
So I think huge upside. I like that you said 19.9 points. That's very Michael. 20.
Wasn't 20, it was 19.9.
Yeah, you can round it at this point. I think Dylan Harper, opposite of Trey Johnson, is more of a ball-dominant guard. He plays a lot like James Harden. I think he changed his pace extremely well. He was banged up his 1 year at Rutgers, where he's often on the floor, but he's just like a shot maker. And his game, when you watch the film, looks a lot like an NBA game. And I think he's going to be a much better NBA player than he was a college player. Obviously, he's got the roots with his family lineage, having a long NBA career, got a father like Ron Harper. But he gets it. He's got a high basketball IQ, plays with amazing pace. How many points a game did he average, Mike?
Was it 19.7? Okay,
yeah,
19.4.
Yeah, it was actually 0.5 less than Trey Johnson.
Is that 20 or
to
is
me,
that 19?
That's close enough to being 20.
Okay.
So I think this guy is actually the more guaranteed of a success than Cooper Flagg to be a scorer in the NBA.
Well,
I think he's what?
Don't agree with that, but I will say what you did mention about his finishing at the game. If you never watched him play, you would think he's a post player. He shoots 65% at the rim, so inside of 3 feet at the rim. That's like Ryan.
Do you like my James Harden comparison?
He's James Harden light in that he's not as shifty as James Harden, but I think he's a way tougher on the ball scorer though.
So that's the guy that I think is going to be a bona fide bucket getter in the NBA.
I agree with that.
Let's go to the best shooter. Different than scorer, shooting, scoring, two different skills there when we break it down. You could make a case that Trey Johnson is the best shooter, right? People have talked about that, but you're looking at a different player who is your best shooter.
Yeah, because Trey Johnson's just not like a catch-and-shoot guy. When I'm talking, you need a three in the corner, in the slot, in the wing, wherever it is, top of the key. The best three-point shooter in this draft will get drafted in the second round. And that's actually Kobe Brea of Kentucky. He's a bigger guard, and he is absolutely lights out. So he's over 45% from three. And, yes, catch-and-shoot situation, awesome. Coming off screens, pretty good. Off the bounce, actually, is where he's really good. He's actually top 10 in the nation in shooting threes off the dribble. Not easy to do, but he had to do that at Kentucky in the way they actually played. But it's almost limitless range. He's an elite shooter. He's what we call a movement shooter. He can move with the ball, without the ball, and find a three-point shot. He doesn't necessarily want to go mid-range. He's not trying to pull up for a dribble jumper, but he's always constantly hunting for threes. 67% effective field goal percentage on catch-and-shoot shots. That is crazy good. There's questions on defense, but he is unequivocally the best shooter in the draft.
Now, Mike O'Donnell, of the 314 field goals he made as a Division I basketball player, 213 of those were threes. Shot nearly 40% as a Division I shooter.
Our best athlete.
Yeah. Best shooter. Okay, athlete, I don't know. There's other guy, Danny Cannell, Brady Quinn. There's other really good athletes that work here. But shooting, I'll actually agree with everything you say because that was not my expertise. But I'm going to take Con Knippel as my best shooter. And I think that, teams like Charlotte see the professionalism he's going to bring. He has like an old soul to his game. Shot 40% from three at Duke. He's not necessarily the sexiest pick. I think he has actually the same barber as Mike O'Donnell. I think they both get the same do, like 2.5 clip on the side, leave a little up top.
Supercuts.
But he's incredibly reliable. Obviously, he played with Cooper, and he's a knockdown shooter. And when you play with a LaMelo Ball or with someone who can create shots for you, you've got to be able to make them when you're open. Brea is going to have a role because he can make shots in the NBA, but Con Knippel is going to be a top 5 pick, so his expectation is going to be higher.
He is a very gifted scorer, 11th the most efficient offensive scorer in the nation, regardless of classification. Knippel can score. Just think Brea, better catch-and-shoot ripper.
Yeah, I still have PTSD looking at that video of Kobe Brea just slicing up the Florida Gators left and right, man. That was tough to watch.
Did you go to Florida?
I did go to Florida.
Okay.
I know, you keep forgetting.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
He's actually just, not forgetting. Anyways, Tim, we're going to talk about the best defender, and we're talking about, for you, Con Knippel's very, very well-known teammate in Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, I'll make it short about Cooper, and I'll throw it over to Mike. I mean, he can guard every position on the floor. He has an unbelievable motor. He's got long arms. He's got great timing. He's an unselfish teammate. That's why I believe he's going to be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. Now, I will say this, Haley. The Dallas Mavericks, we need a Hard Knocks. Because on paper...
I would love that, honestly.
On paper, Kyrie Irving... Anthony Davis, Klay Thompson,
PJ Washington,
Derek Lively.
What are you talking about?
Now you put Cooper Flagg in there. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm so excited. I'm so scared. I don't know if it's necessarily.
The Real House Husbands of Dallas.
Absolutely.
You need that spin-off.
So, but Cooper's amazing. He can guard anybody on the floor. I can't wait for him. I think he's going to be a better pro than he even was in college.
Okay.
Yeah, Cooper Flagg's really good. One thing that Tim kind of said, even though he didn't say it, I think Cooper Flagg is the best competitor in the draft. And I was just kind of enamored with the way that he played. But defensively, Ryan Kalkbrenner, if we're talking about the best defender in this draft class, and if we're talking whether it's accolades or stats, it is absolutely Ryan Kalkbrenner. 4-time defensive Big East Player of the Year. He tied Patrick Ewing's record. And Kalkbrenner was also National Player of the Year. He was virtually unstoppable in defending the rim. He was the best rim protector in college basketball the last 3 years. And I understand there's Zach Edey talk in the last couple of years at Purdue, but Ryan Kalkbrenner was awesome. Now he has to play drop coverage a lot in the NBA because of his lack of speed. But actually, Tim, I don't think he's slow. I think the more that you watch him, the more you can see his feet and how he plays. But I am picking tying Patrick Ewing's record for the best defender in the draft.
Have you ever seen him in person, Kalkbrenner? Because I just walked into a restaurant with him about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him in person,
Okay.
yes.
How tall is he?
He's about 7'2".
I agree. And that's a big difference between 6'11" and 7 foot.
Huge difference.
I also, when I was looking up your stats, I saw that you listed 6 foot.
Those with shoes on.
Shoes on, yeah. That's what I thought. Yeah.
I love how
Might be just get more spicy.
this superlative is somehow we're dragging MOD's college.
It was a drag. I gave him props before for his shooting, but then the 6 foot.
That was not props.
Not so sure about
5'11". Yeah, that's all right. That's right. I'm very comfortable in who I am. It doesn't bother me. You know.
MOD, just keep being you, man. We're gonna come to you. Did you get to talk about? I don't even know where we're at in the show at this point.
I think we're doing most underrated.
You got to talk about your best defender. So let's move on to best athlete. You are the best athlete on this panel, as we established with our superlatives. So I will give you first word here. Who's your best athlete in this year's draft class?
Big 12 Freshman of the Year, VJ Edgecombe. He's awesome. From the Bahamas, came to the United States when he was in 9th grade. Edgecombe, if you just look at the NBA Draft Combine and everything that he did, all of his measurables, I mean, he was really, really, really good. And if you watch the film, and the tape doesn't lie, he's absolutely the best athlete in this draft class. Has crazy good bounce. Now, height is what's somewhat of an issue. You know, about 6'4.5". I know, Tim, you don't really like to talk about players that are under 6'5", but he's about 6'4", and he is bouncy. The best thing about Edgecombe, when I'd say best athlete, though, is that the second best freshman steal rate in the nation, and he was also top 15 in the Big 12 in block percentage as well. So he's the best shot blocking guard in the draft class. He's one of the best defenders in the draft class, and he might be the best dunker in this draft class. And for that reason, I'm going with Edgecombe.
I agree. He's actually my pick as well. He went to my high school, Jacqueline.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, Lehigh, Long Island Lutheran, and his high school coach sat at the same lunch table as myself when we were in 9th grade. And that was actually when you used to have to call people's houses in order to get a date. You had to talk to their mom or their dad or their uncle or their brother. So we have long history. This guy is the ultimate professional as a teenager. So when you bring him in, it's going to be no nonsense. He went to a great program. That's why his draft stock has exploded. He's gone from like top 10 to top 7. Now he's going to be a top 3 pick. It's just type of kid he is. And when I watch him, maybe this is a stretch, but I could see this in 4 or 5 years. I see a lot of Ray Allen. Like Ray Allen, he can make shots, a really good athlete. Is that fair?
No, I don't see any Ray Allen in this game. He's way more Victor Oladipo than he is Ray Allen, because Ray Allen is one of the best three-point shooters of all time, and that's actually the biggest knock on Edgecombe's game is actually three-point shooting.
You're talking about a 20-year career. The guy's 18 years old. He's going to get there, Mike.
I understand that. I mean, he may not get there, but I also think that Oladipo is a better comp because of his ability to put it on the deck.
You may be right.
Okay.
I feel like I'm pro right.
Yeah, and our Kyle Boone, to your point, Tim, has him going number 3 overall to the 76ers in his latest mock. All right, finally, we have arrived to most underrated player. Mike, obviously, you know I love your pick here because I don't know if you know this, but I did go to Florida. Walter Clayton Jr., that is your guy. And we were talking about him a little bit earlier with Matt Norlander, and he was discussing how his draft stock has kind of been on the rise over the last couple of weeks or so. He's really putting it out there that he wants to play for the Miami Heat. We've seen comparisons to Jalen Brunson, Steph Curry, but why is he your most underrated player?
Man, what a perfect fit for the Heat if Clayton actually...
Or the Magic.
100%. Actually, that's in my mock draft, I had him going.
I know, that's why I don't
like
this Heat talk.
Well, I understand that. But just pivoting briefly for Walter Clayton Jr. So the best thing about his game is he's a shot maker. And everybody's going to look to his size. And one of the reasons why he's underrated, and he's considered one of the elite players in the class because he's only 6'2". But he was the best clutch shot maker in college basketball last season. We saw what he did in the NCAA tournament. Yeah. And the numbers actually back it up as well. There was no player in college basketball that was better at making shots off the bounce than Walter Clayton Jr. Number 1 in the nation in dribble jump shot shooting efficiency. Shot over 54% on dribble jump shots. That's crazy, crazy good. Deep range, like we like to say, limitless range. He can shoot 2-3 beyond the three-point line. He can take you off the pick and roll. One of the more elite pick and roll scorers in college basketball last season. I just think whoever drafts Walter Clayton Jr. is going to have a Fred VanVleet type career and in the NBA for a long time.
Yeah, he started his career at Iona, where my older brother played basketball, so I followed his career. He had a great college career. Finished at Florida. My underrated player, and I'm actually going down with this guy, so if he ends up being terrible and has an awful career, please blame me. It's Derek Queen. Like, if I could adopt Derek Queen and bring him into the Doyle, if I could name him Derek Queen Doyle, I would, because he's got a big body, he's got a great IQ, he could score down low, he's learning how to shoot the basketball, but the biggest thing about him is he's a winner. He won a national championship in high school. He went to Maryland, he changed the complete culture there. That's why Kevin Willard just got a big contract, because he was able to bring Derek Queen in. And now the Wizards are going to have a really interesting thing. I think they're going to be at 6, and they're probably going to pass on him. And I think they're going to regret it for a long, long time. He's a local guy from Baltimore. I think he's going to have an outstanding NBA career.
All right. Well, that was great. I love the superlatives. We had a little bit of argument about the athleticism at the table, so we're going to leave the viewers with this. We've got both of our analysts here.
Look at Tim at Northwestern.
The numbers. So, of course, Tim Doyle, one of the most notable Northwestern basketball players there is. There's his numbers there on the right. Then you got Mike O'Donnell on the left. We'll let you be the judge on
How tall are you, Tim?
most athletic.
I'm 6'5".
2.9 rebounds at 6'5". What are you doing?
Hey, was that the year I played at St. John's?
What
That's
are you
erroneous.
doing?
The coach, he never played me.
Well,
That's in your career.
Oh, you gotta
Yeah,
just have
yeah.
Northwestern stats. I the coach. Come on, don't
I
do
averaged
that.
2
to me.
rebounds. I'm 5'7".
All right. We'll let you guys decide. We'll bring it back maybe at the end of the show to talk. Good stuff, guys.